What is a program of joy, and how can we install or activate this program in our own consciousness? In this video, I'll be giving you a step-by-step instruction on how it's done, and we'll be working with one of the cards from the classical tarot deck, Major Arcana number 19, called the Sun. All the instructions that we need for installation and activation of this program are encrypted in the imagery of this card. And all we need to do is just decode this image. That's what we're going to be doing here today. And first of all, let's try to understand what is joy as a thing. Joy is an ability to radiate extra energy. This is the key word, extra energy. This would refer to unconditional happiness, because we do have another card talking about conditional happiness. But in this one, joy is seen as ability to give off extra particles. And if you're depressed and sad and I tell you to radiate extra particles, you might want to say that that's the whole point why you feel depressed. You feel like you don't have any energy to radiate, and how are you supposed to give off or radiate something which you don't even have? So this is the whole idea of this mystery, is that it works at a very subtle level. So even if it seems to you like you need something big to solve your problems, or like to get you out of depression or whatever you're struggling with, it's not actually such a big thing that you need to trigger the state of joy, to enter this state of joy. The change that you need to make is very subtle. This work is done at a very subtle level. So this is the key understanding about the program that we're going to be discussing here today. So this, if you want to grasp it even better, you can use an example of production of neurotransmitters in your body. Just think about it. How little is that amount of serotonin that needs to be produced in your brain for you to experience happiness, or dopamine or oxytocin, whatever that neurotransmitter or hormone you need in order to experience the state of bliss, happiness, joy, love, whatever. How tiny are those amounts are actually that you require, that your brain requires to experience the state that you're wishing to experience. So that is the idea of subtlety. Those amounts are very little, and production of those neurotransmitters is triggered by a nervous impulse. So if you can just figure out how to produce that one tiny nervous impulse, how subtle is that? It's not a big thing that you need. You need to understand, in order to understand how this works, in order to activate this program, you have to understand the subtlety of a nervous impulse. If you can create that one spark of light, spark of electrical spark, nervous impulse, if you can just generate one, if you know how to create one spark, you will end up with a fire if you wish to have a big fire. One spark is enough. If you can, later you just need to focus on that spark, blow some air on it for extended period of time to turn that little spark into a big fire if you wish to. And the idea that that ability to create this spark is within you, even at the depth of despair, at the depth of depression, or whatever else state you might be struggling with sometimes. We all go through that in our lifetimes, and this knowing how this works can get you out of the darkest places in this lifetime and outside of it. So we'll first just quickly go through all the symbols here, and I'll give you the practice just to show you how simple it actually is. The practice, the exercise is very small, very simple. I want you to just feel how easy and how simple creation of spark is, if you grasp it. Later, if we still have time left, I'll dive deeper into the details of this program, because it is the most complex, one of the most complex programs that exist in our reality. And of course, we won't be able to cover everything that is encrypted in this imagery in just one conversation, but I'll give you enough to start working with it. So let's go through the symbols and then do the practice. So sun, we see sun in the sky, has a face. This is a symbol of the force that we're going to be working with, that force of conscious light, that conscious force, that conscious light. That is what we are going to be focusing on in order to start this reaction. The child represents the state of consciousness that we need to be in order to activate this program. The horse represents the impulse of the planet, the nervous impulse of Gaia. The flag in child's hand represents the sexual power, sexual desire, sexual energy, Kundalini, which is supposed to be sent upwards or held. That flag is being held upwards, up straight. And this represents the idea that we are not supposed to spend that energy, sexual energy that will be generated as a result of this mechanism being activated. We're not supposed to spend it at the same level where it's generated. We're supposed to sublimate that sexual energy and send it upwards for it to reach the very top. That is the idea of Kundalini awakening, which is also encoded here. What else we have here? We have sunflowers. They symbolize dedication and devotion. This would mean, like, if you figure out how to create that one spark, then in order to make it grow into something bigger, into a real source of light and warmth, you do have to dedicate yourself to focusing on this spark for a while until it grows into something bigger. If you just create it and then turn away, it dies. You have to create it again. That logic is simple and obvious. That is symbolized by sunflowers, because that's what they do. They focus on the sun and they follow it for a period, extended period of their lifetime. So this is the symbol of focusing and dedicating yourself to this program long enough so that it opens in its full force. Today we will not open the full scale of this program, but we'll at least learn the basic practice to start this thing moving, at least. So what else we have? We have a wall behind the child and the horse. That wall symbolizes safety and protection. That's what the child's supposed to feel in order for this thing to work. You, as a consciousness who's going to be performing this, are supposed to feel yourself like a child feels in a garden, watched over by the caring parent. The sun is the consciousness, a conscious, powerful and conscious being watching over that garden, within the walls of which a child is playing. So that wall is the symbol of safety, protection, security, provided by Father. And this is the symbology of Eden, paradise, garden, all those gardens, where children of God are playing joyfully under the all-seeing eye of the Father, observing from above. So that symbology of the fence also refers to the idea of inner garden. Inner garden is telling us that this work that we're going to be doing is supposed to be done within your own inner space, your own inner garden. And that is the symbology taken from houses which were built, like a wealthy house in this part of the world at least, were built in a form of a square where all like the whole house is built in the shape of a square, and there is space left in the middle, and a garden is created there in the middle of the house. So that garden would be called inner garden, while there is also an outer garden. But kids were allowed to play in this inner garden because all the windows of this four walls of the house are looking inward into that garden. So a child can be left out there free to play, feeling free, but actually being under constant observation from the windows looking inward. And child is not sent until a certain age to play in the outer garden. That logic you get, same symbology same idea that is represented by in the US you have backyard and front yard. That difference. Front is dangerous, strangers can interact with the child anytime. Backyard is the protected, closed space where child is more safe to play under the observation. Child can be easily observed from the windows from the house. So that logic is symbology of that fence. That is how you're supposed to feel in order to make this thing work. You're supposed to feel like a child playing in Father's safe, protected garden, and nothing should be disturbing you. And the only thing that you are focusing on is joy itself, is the pleasure of playing itself. So that is the idea of dedicating. You're focusing on the light, on the joy only, nothing else you care about. So the symbology of the sunflower also represents the idea of fruit of society. So all the fruits of society are left outside of the garden. So as a child is playing, as you are as a child, you're playing in this garden, focusing on this joy and light and this conscious force that we'll be focusing on. Nothing should take your attention away. So all the fruits that society can offer, whatever it is for you, those things should be left out of this garden for the time of activation of this program. So this program works the best in seclusion. So it used to be performed in monasteries and so on. The monastery is the perfect place where you're isolated from fruits of society. You are under protection, and you can focus just on interaction with this conscious force. So you don't have to go to monastery for this, but the idea is at least putting your phone away for an hour or for a day would represent that same idea of leaving some flowers outside the garden to make this work. So do we have everything? Generally, just the brief idea you got. Now let's just do the practice and then discuss the details. So the practice will require you only to recall that feeling that you all, I'm sure, experienced when after a dark and rainy day, suddenly sun appears through the clouds. It's like a dark sky all covered with clouds, and you look at the sky, it's dark and gray, and suddenly you see that those clouds break and the sun shines through. That feeling, you've all experienced it, and if you can just recall that moment of out of darkness, out of dark clouds, that one beam of light, that sun suddenly rushing through, and you observing that, can you recall that feeling of that is basically all I need you to do? That's the essence of this whole exercise, of this whole practice. If you can just recall that, can you reproduce it? Even if this thing in the sky is not happening, you still can experience it, can't you? So this whole idea of starting the spark is just talking just about this ability. If you've just experienced this moment, if you can induce it, if you can produce it in yourself, you got it already. So now to turn it into practice, just remember this feeling that we'll be going for, that feeling, that subtle, pleasant. You have to be sensitive enough to feel it and to be able to produce and feel it and hold it. So the practice itself, it can be done with closed eyes. You can just behind the closed eyes in that darkness. Obviously, there's nothing in the dark. And you can visualize the sun suddenly appearing and shining its light onto you. Can you just do that part? And can you experience this in the darkness? Visualize the sun and ask the sun to shine onto you. And experience that moment when that light reaches you, it touches you, your face, your skin. Can you feel that? Try it until you can feel it. If you can feel it, keep doing it for a while and start turning into a child. A child who, like if you just show a finger or just wave your hand, starts laughing and smiling for no reason. A child who doesn't need much for happiness. This is the sample and the idea of unconditional happiness, where it's enough to just shine some light onto that child and the child start laughing and enjoying the moment. So you visualize that sun, feel that light on your skin, and start turning into that child. You might start feeling like wanting to smile. Don't stop it. Smile and keep doing. Smile at the sun and ask it for more light. It shines onto you. You take that light, you receive that light, you feel it, you breathe it in, and spread it all through your body, through every cell of your body. Spread it, feel it. With the smile, you reply back to the source, to the sun, asking for more. So this would start your interaction with the source. The source shines on you. You breathe that light in, and you reply with a smile. That's your conversation. You smile, the sun smiles at you, you smile at the sun. You smile, and you take that light in, spread it, exhale a smile. Inhale light, exhale smile. And that interaction, if you do this for a while, you should already, by this time, if you're performing it well, should already start feeling like a child, a little bit playful, little bit joyful already. As this energy is spreading through your body, it would induce that state of childish joy a little bit. It will start. And if you do it for a while, you'll start noticing energy building in your body. It will start building from the lower centers. So it's like if your tank was empty, you're depressed and sad, and your battery is empty, your tank is empty, you have to start filling it up. From the bottom, it fills up. It starts from the bottom up and goes higher and higher. When it reaches your second chakra, you will feel it as a desire to do something. that means that the energy, that's symbolized here by the red flag, is starting to build in your body, in your vessel, in your tank. And when that energy reaches the center, your second chakra, you feel like you can't hold it anymore. You want to share it, you want to do something, you want to tell someone how you feel, that desire to start acting is the energy rising. And don't act on it just yet. Hold it, keep doing it for a while. It might feel like disturbing desire to just call your friend or tell someone, I'm feeling so great, I'm feeling so great. If you do that right now, that all the energy that you've accumulated will just go back to zero again. You'll express it, and then you'll feel depressed and sad again, empty. Tank will be empty again. So this is the idea of sunflower dedication. You have to do it for a while. Wait until your tank actually fills up, until your battery fills up enough so that you can hold the charge for a while. Not that you just, with one action, you just spend that energy on that same level right away, and then you start over. No problem, you start again and again if you want to, but the idea here is not to spend it right away. Hold that energy and hold that flag upright. Let that energy go higher. So that would be performed by not running and acting upon that energy right away. Continue. You enjoy, you feel the impulse, desire to call somebody, tell somebody, do something. Just keep doing that again. Your main focus should be not the people, not the actions, not the activity. Your one and only focus and desire here should be to experience this joy, to experience this light, to experience this interaction with this cosmic being, this conscious force with which you're interacting right now. That should be your one and only focus for a while. This is the idea of the sunflower. You have to pump this, like with the hand pump. You have to pump it for a while until it starts running. So do it for a while longer, and if that, after that impulse to express it, tell it, share it with somebody, if you keep doing it for a while, and you'll start feeling an impulse to do something silly, maybe something childish, something just random. It could come, I don't know, it could come, I don't know, jump, dance, I don't know, hug a stranger if you're doing it in the park or outside looking at the sun, which is a good way, I'll talk about it. If you're performing it outside at the sunrise, for example, and you see some strangers and you suddenly feel that impulse to just hug someone or smile at somebody, or, I don't know, start, like, take your shoes off and run, I don't know, that childish behavior, if you feel that impulse to do something childish, and that is the impulse of the horse. That's the horse, the impulse of planet arising. It's like you're starting to feel that impulse, you're catching it. Now the aim of this whole exercise is to ride that impulse. That you do by following it, just whatever comes to your mind. Take off your shoes and run and jump on the grass, I don't know, dance with a stranger, or, I don't know, smile at everyone, whatever, I don't know, I'm coming up. I don't know if you're in office, you're doing this in office, weird, but anyway. And you want, I don't know, suddenly you want to make coffee for all of your colleagues, or whatever the impulse is, the idea of riding the horse is just ride it, just do it. Don't think about it. That whole idea is pretty difficult to perform, and there is a whole other card talking just about this, how to do it. This is the idea of just do it. And the card of Forrest Gump, I call it. Just you receive the impulse, just perform it. Don't think about it. And we might want to talk about this separately, but here it's enough if you just try. riding that impulse, riding that horse for a while, and still focusing on just the joy of it. Why are you making coffee for everyone? Because you enjoy it. You're doing it for the joy of it. And I'll warn you, you won't be able to stay on that horse for very long in the beginning. That's normal. You'll start thinking eventually, start analyzing why and what are you doing and so on. And that's normal. You'll fall off this horse. That's natural. But the idea that I wanted to teach you here today is just this, how easy it is to create that spark, and that actually to start producing serotonin or dopamine or whatever in your brain. That's all you need, actually. That's how subtle it is and how easy it is to perform. Yes, the rest, mastering this energy, is difficult. It will take you a lot of time. Many lifetimes it takes for a normal soul. I'll talk about it later. But our task here today is not to understand this program in its entirety, but just to grasp at least the part which is enough for you to learn how to generate light, how to generate that spark. And that is something that we call joy. That is something, when you experience it, we experience it as bliss. We people call it love, that state, if you manage to reach it. And all I wanted to explain to you here today is how simple it is to do it, to start this reaction, and that it's very subtle. And yes, with that subtlety, we'll have to work to hold this impulse well for extended period of time. But it's normal. If you just learn how to do it, you can perform this exercise at like before falling asleep. And that little moment, that gate before you have your first thought, when you wake up in the morning, when you're already awake, but you didn't have your first thought yet. If you can practice your first thought being this desire to experience joy, this exercise, if you can just train yourself for this to be your first impulse, then I'll be very hopeful for you that you can grasp the rest. So, as for the practice, that's pretty much it. If I forgot something, I'll add in. Maybe I'll describe in comments if I did forget something. But that's basically the idea. Just finding that, focusing on that light, turning into a child, getting that impulse, and following it as long as you can. Train, try, see how long you can stay. But now let's go deeper into the symbology and into each of these glyphs. And I want you to actually understand what this program is. That this idea of experiencing joy is all about radiating, okay, giving off particles. That is the masculine principle, electrical principle. And it's the best represented with the sun, which shining from the sky is representing that ability to endlessly, for us, from our point of view, radiate stable light. It's a stable source of radiation of light, which is a life-giving force for us human beings. So here, this idea of radiating is the key that will I'm thinking which way to go. There's just so much to cover, really. I did mention that this is the most complex program that runs in our reality at this point of time. And in order to understand and to apply this program, to run it at the full scale here today in our daily life, we would have to study many more mysteries. For example, I'll just give you some. The moon I talked about is representing the same idea that on this card is represented by the horse. So the idea for this whole thing to work, your horse must be white. And you must be able to ride it without a saddle and reins, which all by itself is a very complex task. And everything that is symbolized by the white horse we discussed here, because this is the idea of that force that is hidden within your DNA. So that's the deepest level. That's everything that we talked about as related to the reptile and the physical beingness. That's the horse. And the best way to hold that horse, to keep your horse white, is by following the 10 commandments. So that's the idea of 10 commandments. They were just instruction for you how to keep your horse white. At least just do that. They were like, we don't hope you to perform the whole thing, just at least keep your horse white. That was the idea. So all the rules, you already know what they are. I'm not going to repeat them, but that's the idea. As I said, the fool is the child in the process of riding a horse when he gets that impulse and he just starts moving. Then we have card strength, symbolizes the idea of Kundalini awakening of Kundalini, which here is represented by the flag, red flag standing upright, and also the idea of taming the beast. That's the same idea. Kundalini awakening, taming the beast is the interaction of the child with the horse. A child is supposed to tame the beast, the horse, the wild horse. And here, a girl is taming a beast. That logic. So just for this interaction of the child with horse, we have a whole separate arcanum. So I'm explaining this just to understand how complex it is actually. It's not just a flat image. It is a very complex set of programs where each program has, it's like program in programs. They're all other 21 cards are in this one. And each of the 22 cards of the major arcana, each of them holds all the others within itself. That's how complex this thing actually is. But in order to understand one, we learn this one, then we learn the second one, we connect them, and that's how we collect the puzzle. So what do we do if I said like, oh, that sexual energy is supposed to be sublimated and sent upwards? And what if some of you said, so if I'm supposed to be just joyful and feeling my joy and stuff and not experience any, not actually have any sexual desires fulfilled, like sexual desires would here be, would mean following the desire to have something that you can enjoy. Not only the sexual interaction itself, but interaction with any object which gives you pleasure. So am I supposed to give away all my desires and only live in this state of bliss? Well, if you want to have, for example, interaction with a desire or with a partner and still experience this unconditional love, bliss, and unconditional joy, but still want a partner or a thing in your life to enjoy, something physical, that would be described by this card, where the recipe for like how to make this thing work in a situation where you have a person or a thing that involved. I don't know, I'm simplifying as much as I can to make it understandable, but so if that's what we need to understand. If we want to understand that precision of that impulse, of that, I've showed you how to generate that and how to, like, it's not that hard to enjoy that moment whenever anything or anyone or anything happens to you that causes that impulse in you. You can figure out how to enjoy it, right? But how do we figure out the difference between everything that you enjoy, which you might confuse for actually being a sexual pleasure? Is it too complicated? I'll try to say it again. So this card, we'll have to work with this one to understand this, your ability to distinguish between this subtle and also subtle. You can feel difference, right? They're very subtle, but the difference where the second one is something that you experience when, I don't know, your close person just says or does something that you never like expected suddenly, like some unexpected, unpleasant news, for example, something you see or hear and it makes you feel for that unexpected, unpleasant. So this subtle difference between and both of them are tiny. And to know the difference would mean to master this arcana of balance, of justice. And this is the symbology of Maat, the goddess, who is weighing your heart in the afterlife against the feather, her feather. So that feather of Maat is the symbol of that subtlety. So that's this impulse that you have in your heart, that difference between and that subtle difference is equal, like in mythology, it's considered to be equal to a feather of goddess Maat, and that is something that you need to learn to master, difference between those two impulses, so that your heart is actually light and pure and there is no suppressed sad moments that you're holding and keeping them as unnecessary to of your focus. And there's so many more cards I put here on the table. I think I'm not going to show all of them today. Basically, there's many more cards within here, within this one card, which we would have to understand also to make this program work fully. But why you don't need to rush, and no need to try to get it all, grasp it all fully, because there's no such urgency anyway. What is this program as a thing? Why does it even exist? This idea is this program is what allows for your rebirth in between lifetimes. So when you die physically, that light that you see, when you fly towards that light, you merge with that light. It cleanses you, it purifies you, and it ensures your rebirth into a new physical body. And why does this program even exist? Well, now you have to remember that you, as consciousness, you exist on quantum level. And on quantum level, you are huge. You are very, very big and very powerful on quantum level. But now imagine you, quantum consciousness, all-powerful, all-knowing, want to express yourself into the physical. And you understand there are a lot of imperfections and the density of physical reality basically will not allow you, that big, huge, and fast quantum being, to be expressed fully here in the physical in one go. It's not you want to express yourself into this physical reality, but because of the physical density, because of the limited capacity of the transmitter that you're going to be using to express yourself into the physical, you realize that you'll have to squeeze this wholeness of who you are into a very tiny opening, like to pour all of that into the physical reality. You need like a funnel with a tiny opening, and through that tiny opening you're going to have to squeeze the wholeness of who you are and then open it up once again into this physical reality using this medium, this physical apparatus. And you, quantum consciousness, you understand how big you are. You understand how imperfect is the medium through which you're going to be expressing yourself into the physical reality. You understand that a lot of information will be lost during transmission. So in this process, when you're squeezing yourself through this tiny opening through which you want to open up the file later, you understand that this medium through which you're going to be working is imperfect. Simply because of the density, a lot of noise will appear during transmission of this file. There's a big file about who you are, and we need to send it through a medium, through a cable or a channel with limited capacity. Capacity is limited due to your physicality. So you want to express this wholeness into the physical, and you realize there is absolutely no way that you can do it in one go. If you just know how big you are and how tiny is this opening through which you're squeezing yourself, you know absolutely for sure that in one go you won't be able to do it. You will have to do multiple resend of the file. Resend until that wholeness can be expressed here. So to allow for that multiple resend of the file, you create a program of light. This is what allows for this resend operation, because you want to express, but the capacity of medium of this apparatus is limited. The whole file will not come out easily in one attempt. So this is why this program exists. On the level of quantum reality, when it's activated, it's what pulls you into your next body. So good news is that we don't need to install this program. It's already installed by default. It is part of your default programming. So that's good. We don't need to install. That would be pretty difficult if we had to. So all we need to learn is how to activate it within a lifetime, which means one lifetime would be like one transmission, that wholeness of who you are, squeezing through this tiny opening of the funnel through which you need to pass to then open up the wholeness of who you are on this receiving end of the physical reality. So one send of the file can be considered one lifetime. Then when you are tired, you've done all you could, and you're tired and you're lost and you're depressed and you forgot why you even started this thing, you just want to get out. What happens? You get out to this space where, seeing that light, you remember why you even started it, you merge with the light again, and a new transmission begins. So a new lifetime would be a new transmission. This is rebirth. Merging with that light ensures your rebirth, retransmission of the file. But if we don't want to die physically in order to request resend of the file, we can learn how to imitate death, kind of run this program, activate it within a lifetime. So within one transmission, we are here transmitting, expressing who you are on this physical real level. And you still have that some connection going through that funnel, connection to who you are on the quantum level. And if you know how to run this program, you can perform like rebirth within this life while still being in the physical representation, imitate death, and to be reborn as many times as you wish to. You can be reborn every day, every morning. You can be reborn every hour, every minute of every hour if you wish to, if you learn how to perform it. And what it does, it cleanses you. That's the idea of cleansing, purification, and renewal of this resend. So it's kind of like resending without having to go back to the source. We can do it if we just go to that point of the, through this wholeness of who you are, that tiny opening through which you want to squeeze yourself, that tiny opening of this funnel. If we just go to that tiny opening only, we don't need to go all the way back to source to lose the physical body. What we do, we still hold the physical body, and we just focus on just this entrance, the center point from which the transmission begins. So that's the idea. Just if we can just squeeze, go back to this center point, and that works as beginning of retransmission while still here. So we don't have to, again, start all over. So that's the idea of initiation. That's the idea of rebirth. That's the idea of Christ being reborn in your heart eternally. All that logic is this program being run or activated. So it will either run when you die automatically. There's not much you can do actually right now at this point of your development to you don't really have choice. The moment you leave the body, this light will attract your attention. You won't probably be able yet to resist or do anything. You'll just merge with it, and rebirth is just automatically going to happen. And it's not a bad thing, okay? You wanted it in the first place, so don't complain to me in comments about having to do it, okay? You wanted it, so I'm explaining you what you already know. On the conscious level, you know all of this. You just don't remember, so I'm explaining it to you. Those who want to complain, why are we trapped here, all that stuff, please go somewhere else. So, the idea of resend, you got it, I hope that simplification, that you can, if you can run this program fully, not just this part that we just learned, at least the joy part, if you can just do that as at the beginning level, that's more than enough. Later, if we master this program to activate it more fully, it will allow for your complete rebirth as a new you within still. So that is the idea of renewal, cleaning, healing, purification, all that. So how is it done? We understand to run this program fully, we'd have to go to that center point. And that's once again that center that I was talking about, the center of the cross. Here I would have to mention that I intentionally connected for you these 3 recent videos with this blue top, because I'm talking about the same thing in all these 3 recent videos where I'm wearing this blue thingy. I'm talking about the same state of consciousness. It's the same state I discuss when I talk about the cross center point. Is the same state of being I'm talking about when I talk about the quantum part of your brain, limbic system center, and the reptile, and ability to focus and relax the toddler in the second video. And this third video, where I'm talking about the same state of consciousness. I'm just using 3 different approaches to explain it to you so that you grasp it better. If you grasp at least one of them, if at least one of them works, you get to the point, the rest will just fit in place perfectly. So that's why I connected all these 3 videos for you to understand that it is the same state, center point. I'm just trying to convince you, just go there, just go there, this way, that way, by talking about brain, by talking about consciousness, by talking about cards. How else I can convince you to just go to that center point and be still. What happens is when this program is activated within the lifetime or in between lifetimes, It works as an error correction code. Error correction code is something that allows to detect and correct some of the errors which occurred during transmission. So this is the magic of this light. The magic of this program is that you, as quantum consciousness, knowing that when you will be squeezing yourself through this imperfect medium, a lot of data will be lost, a lot of information will be distorted, the signal will be distorted, there will be noise in the transmission because of the imperfection of the medium, of the apparatus. Some files will be distorted. So you allowed for a program of error correction. So this is the idea that this light can find errors which occur during transmission. You transmitting, expressing yourself into the physical reality through this imperfect channel with limited capacity. And during transmission, the file gets distorted. Errors occur. This is what makes you feel sad, upset, Your negative emotions are a side effect of computational errors which occurred during transmission. Simply because any quantum system is extremely delicate. It's very delicate. It's very powerful, but very delicate. And it works only at perfect conditions. But when the conditions are imperfect during this squeezing through this tunnel, file will be corrupted. It's absolutely guaranteed. It's inevitable. File will be corrupted. So you allowed for a possibility of correcting those mistakes, errors which occurred, computational errors which occurred as a result of squeezing your wholeness through this opening. And that's what you experience as sadness, all those emotions, uncomfortable emotions are a result of computational errors. And when the amount of those computational errors they're piling up one on top of another, and you don't run the program of error correction, those errors are piling up. You feel depressed, tired, ill, sick, and you just die and get rid of this body, go back to source. But if you don't want to perform that yet, we can, while still in this body, run this program. And what it does here, while we're here in the body, it does the same thing that it does the moment we leave the physical body. We leave when we are overwhelmed by the amount of computational errors that we've made in this transmission. And we don't know how to cope with that heaviness and that muddiness of those emotions and those paradoxes that have been piling up in our life. We could not carry all of that watery muddiness, and we want to feel lightness and brightness and joy, but we can't. That's the idea of being flooded with water, the idea of being flooded with emotions. Again, symbology of a flood. Flood is happening by the end of your life when you want to get out of here. You're overloaded with unresolved paradoxes, which are side effect of computational errors. Emotions, water, if you know your elements, that's element of water. So you're overwhelmed with all of that muddiness, and you leave your physical body. The moment you die, what happens when you see that light, you merge with that light, what it does, this light represents the element of fire. So this fire shines onto this muddy water that you're carrying in your consciousness. It shines that powerful light, fire energy, onto your water, and that water boils and evaporates. The water is gone. All that is left is the essence at the bottom, only the essence of who you are. That's information that you've expressed as your being, as who you are. That is not lost in between lifetimes. That is kept. Emotions are erased. Information, your essence, is kept. Essence merges with light, and receives a rebirth in a new physical body. So emotions are lost in between lifetime. That's the stuff that was weighing you down. The emotions, water, is evaporated by the light, that light of consciousness that shines onto it. So that's what happens in between lifetimes when this program is activated by your physical death. Or we can imitate death here, to be reborn. We would get the same effect of all that muddy, unresolved stuff that we're holding within our consciousness, all those things that are like you're trying to solve in your head and cannot find the end of this, and just get drowning. You're drowning in all those thoughts and emotions. You feel like you're flooded, and you just want end of this world. You want end and new beginning. So if you understand how to activate this light, how to activate and let it burn for a while until it really matches the amount of water that you have. What it does, it starts boiling off that water, and the excess water evaporates, and only the essence, the information, stays. So you get understanding, realization. So the idea of those of you who are asking me like, I want to teach us how to do shadow work, teach us how to work with the darkness, with shadow. That's the whole idea. Before you learn how to be light, it's not a very good idea to try to work with the darkness. First, you need to learn how to generate that spark in whatever conditions you're in. Then you're ready and prepared to face any kind of muddiness and darkness and dive anywhere you wish to. First, you need to learn how to be light, how to generate light at any conditions. Then it's time to do shadow work. That's the idea. And because this, if you just learn how to be in the center, when you're in that center, you can just enjoy the ride, and the emotions are being resolved automatically. This is the key. Like, because you feel like you have to think through them, you have to understand, realize something, you have to do the work. That's what pulls you deeper and deeper down into that confusion, because you cannot find ends already. But if you realize that if you can just be in that center for a while, if you can just return to that state of a child for a while, just be this at least for a few minutes a day, that excess water that is flooding your being will slowly start to evaporate. And your being will get more and more joyful and easy, and so on. For others who are asking, teach us how to connect with our spiritual teachers or with my higher self. How do I connect, your higher self, or with source, or that's the same idea. This recipe is also on this card. If you understand how to connect, this is the higher consciousness, this is your higher being or inner being, whatever you want to call it. This is the God, the symbology of all of that. If you can learn how to interact with this consciousness, that's the spiritual guides, that's the angels, and whatever you want to channel, or it's the same idea, same skill you need to gain. Should I go through some more symbols? Time, almost 1 hour. Okay, a little bit more. I'll dig into a few more symbols, just throw them at you. Still a whole lot of information uncovered here, but at least something. Okay. Let's focus on the light blue background I did not mention here. What does it mean? In every card, the background of the card is telling us which level, on which level is this program to be activated. Where is it installed? For example, here we have light blue sky, and there are cards where we have yellow background, for example. This is telling us that these programs are to be activated on the level of Manipura chakra, which tells us that some physical action needs to be taken in order to make this work. Some steps we need to take physically. But in our card, the light blue background tells us that no physical action is required. All the work that is required to activate this program is to be done on the level of consciousness, which is the level of Vishuddha chakra, which would be the throat chakra is responsible for cleansing, purification, expression. I hope now you're understanding the logic why this area is the area through which you are coming into beginning your expression. That's why this chakra is responsible for cleansing, tuning, purification, blah, blah, blah. So all this work is to be done on this level, and to understand that even better, I want you to remember that moment in my near-death experience. I'm pretty sure most of you, or all of my followers, came from my NDE videos, most of them. So if you watched that interview where I'm sharing the experience, how I was out of the body, and then the moment where I'm back in the body, in that NDE, there is this moment where a doctor is shouting at my face, asking, who are you, what's your name? He wanted me to say it, and in my head I knew the answer. I knew. He wants to hear Irada, I know it. And I tried to say it to him, to send that signal through my forehead, through my eyes, like it's not going. I'm sending, it's not going. And I tried to figure out how to send it until I stumbled upon this area, and the signal went through. And I was like, wow, it's working. But in my head, I said Irada. I sent it through my mouth, and what came out was an animal roar. And when that roar reached my own ears, when I heard what it sounded like, I was shocked. I was like, that's not what I was expecting to hear. This is, please catch this sense of you're trying to say something, when it reaches your ears, you get that, the difference. Remember I was giving you that example of and that slower going, the lower impulse, that sadness impulse. That's what I experienced, like dissonance, mismatch. That's not what I said. Understand? Like that is the impulse, and that is the thing that we need to tune. That's the idea of logos. First there was word. First thing you say, first expression, you say it. And I get people coming like, I'm manifesting abundance, and I'm saying abundance, abundance, but the world is showing back to me misery, misery. You're saying abundance, what you get, the feedback from the world, from reality, it's showing you only misery. So this is the idea, and the feeling you get is like it's not matching. That's not what I said. I said abundance. I said abundance. And you said abundance, but the reality here's misery, because that's what it reflects back to you. You get feedback, it's not matching. So the idea of tuning this area and tuning this, your ability to ride this horse. This is so complicated, guys. There's still so much I could not fit in here. As I'm talking, I'm recalling more and more, but okay. So this is the idea of, you might be saying abundance through your, and you like, that's what I'm asking for. But no, if when that signal reaches back, the feedback reaches you, and you feel that offness of it, is like, that's not what I asked for. It's useless to be angry at the mirror, at the reality that's reflecting. The work is to tune that offness, to tune, practice more and more and more until you get perfect alignment of what you hold in your head, what you send to express, like what I hold in my head as who I am, that expression that my quantum consciousness holds as who I am, and then I express it, at the end result is this. Is my conscious quantum consciousness ready, or does it still feel like it's a little bit off? It's not fully who I am yet. That is the idea, that offness that you feel in your head, that's not exactly what I wanted. That is what we work with, that alignment that you get if you learn how to sing, for example. You first have that beautiful song in your head, you try to sing it, and you think, I think it sounds beautiful. You record it, and it's terrible. then you have to listen, you have to believe not just your imagination, but the recording. It says is not good. So you have to practice on and tune this loop between what you have in your head, what you try to say, and what the reality reflects back to you, what you have in your, the song you have in your head, the song that as it comes out on your recording, until it matches perfectly. That's when you become a true singer. So that's the singing logos coming from this area. And that expression is not only, by the way, idea of practicing singing to tune this is a good idea. If you have free time to do that, it helps to tune your connection between what you think with your apparatus, which allows your expression, until it's fully aligned. And if you're good at singing, you're usually already aligned more or less with who you are. So that is the logic of tuning. That's the idea of the light blue background. All the work is to be done in that subtle, precise tuning, a little bit more. And the idea of when we do that practice interacting with the sun, if you do it maybe today, you might get like some sort of result. The more your state of consciousness is reflecting this requirement of this card, of this imagery, the more that interaction will be what it's designed to be. Because at first you might really not fully feel as this child, fully safe in the father's garden, because the symbology, let's go to the sun symbology of the sun, the father, it would be the symbol of all the sun gods that we've ever had, father gods that we had ever, like Zeus, Jupiter, all of those. You don't have to focus and point that the sun is the actual sun only, or is it, if it's Jupiter, is this the Jupiter, the planet Jupiter? So which one is this? Is this sun or Jupiter, or is it who, where? We don't need to point like who specifically is, which god is this? Or the idea here is that the sun is the symbol of the conscious force who knows what it's doing. That idea of conscious light, that's what the sun represents here, because the sun as the one that we see in the sky shining, and it gives us this light that is really essential for our lives. But if there wasn't Jupiter flying around there, we would have to actually pay for this shining, radiant body in the sky, because with this radiance, this sun is pretty big, and with that large size, it has gravity. So whatever asteroids or rocks flying by somewhere in space, if they enter our solar system, they would be pulled towards this big object, so they would inevitably fly through us. In many cases, there are very high chances that we would be damaged by these rocks flying towards this sun, being pulled by its gravitational field. And there is the planet Jupiter a little bit away, which is pretty big, or who is pretty big, I want to say he's big. So that planet is big, and the gravitational field of the planet is strong enough to catch those rocks and asteroids that are flying towards us. Otherwise, they would be flying towards our tiny little planet. But that planet is catching it, and it's forming like an asteroid belt formed by the gravitational field of Jupiter. And that asteroid belt is also the symbol of the fence here. Fence as the symbology of kids. You are safe here. It's all been arranged perfectly for you to feel safe in this garden. This planet is your playground. It's your garden. We've put this shining object, which will give you light, and we've put another object, which keeps the rocks and stuff away from you. So those both fathers are representing the conscious force which organized it all perfectly to tell you, kids, you're safe, father is watching over you. Like, all the conditions have been prepared and organized for you perfectly so that you can just enjoy playing in this garden. That's the idea of the force that we need to be focusing on. Don't try to name him, or don't try to put a name on that force. It is conscious force. And you can interact if you want to call that force your higher being, or your higher self, or your guides, or your God, whatever you name it. But the idea is that it's just conscious force, the conscious light, which is all-knowing, all-seeing, and running this program. So many things coming. Which one should I say? So the state of the child, let's go to that one. The child here has no gender. This is the idea of the state of consciousness that you need to be in order to make this thing work properly. You have to be in a state of consciousness of a child who hasn't yet learned about the concept of gender. This is who you were before you were introduced or found out about the concept of gender. Because here the concept of gender, it again sends us back to that Eden, all that stuff before finding out about having your body having a gender. That is a symbology of the first major computational error which occurs in your transmission. So you are transmitting yourself, and at first it's going well. You transmit your file of who you are, and it meets this DNA, and that interaction of light with DNA. Light is information, DNA is catching it, and information is telling DNA what to become, who to become. And that thing was going well, and you were growing into a child and just experiencing the joy of being. Just everything seemed like you were curious about everything. Everything was like so full of inspiration for you. And that was going well. That symbolizes the transmission was going smoothly until that moment. Like everything was going smoothly. Light is coming, DNA is catching it, unzipping the files of DNA and making you grow until that moment when the concept of gender is introduced into your reality. And that is when a first major computational error occurs. Because just think about it, you are introduced to the concept of gender way before you will have any chance to make any sense of it. Like, what is it? You will not understand what gender is, even have no clear clue what it actually represents for many years ahead. So that first moment where you're introduced with the file, which is at that moment for you too big to unzip, too big to read. You face it, and you try to unzip it. Like, what is this? What is this? You can't. At that age where you're introduced to it, there's no chance you can unzip that file yet. So from that moment on, your consciousness will be constantly overloaded with this concept and many more you will pick up along the way. But this first dilemma that you face, that first paradox that you need to resolve, which is so huge, so big, so major, it seems like it is a big one. But even if you're not thinking as a child, not sitting there whole day and thinking like, what is this gender? What is this thing? What is it? If you're not thinking consciously, that dilemma, that paradox is still running in the back of your head. That question will be ongoing, which means that in this part of expression of you, errors will start occur. That will be the first major computational error which occurred in your expression of this file. Gender. And that moment, your world stops being paradise, stops being heaven. So this is the key. This program is activated by you being in the state of consciousness before you learned your gender. Before you've been overloaded. You can put yourself back to that short period, that period of time, by trying to generate that state. It will take time. Before you had any sexual desires, before you knew anything about society and the fruits of society, while you still felt so safe and protected in the Father's garden, where Father was sun and everything was shining and everything made you smile. That time of curiosity and openness to life, when you are still like empty file, ready to unzip, like you're just potentiality. You can be anything. You can still be, you still don't know that you already have physical gender. As a consciousness, you are still quantum consciousness. You're still holding both genders equally balanced within your consciousness. And when that first paradox occurs, you face it, you're like everything starts, like gets gray suddenly. From that moment on, you are cast out of the Father's garden. That is the idea. To activate this, you have to fake being born, fake being in that period of like first couple of years of your life, where everything was just joy, everything was. And that short moment is the easiest to experience before a day starts, at the dawn, at the beginning of the day. And if you can catch that tiny little window where you already woke up, but you haven't started thinking yet. So this gender is something that gets you thinking. And sound like, so that part of your life, you enjoyed life before you started thinking. So you go through that same moment within a day in that tiny little window when you're already awake, alive, and you are aware of yourself. Oh, I'm awake. You have that awareness already, but that little gap between that awareness and your first thought, that little gap is the perfect time when to activate this program. Because the moment your first thought of the day starts, probably it will be your last thought of the previous day and all the problems and da 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 da. So that gap is when this is activated the best. There are a lot of religions who grasp this, and they suggest their followers to meditate and practice on the rising sun. That's the best time. If you can find a moment to meet the sun, greet the sun at the dawn, if you can perform this interaction with the sun and do this practice at the dawn, it would be perfect. I'm not the first one who is suggesting that, but you can understand why. Because that time is the time of birth, the time of beginning, is the easiest time to find that connection with that light, with establish that interaction, establish that communication with that Father, with that source. And at the dawn, it's already shining, but you can actually directly look at it before it actually goes and shines fully, where you can't already interact. So at the dawn, it's the best time to establish that interaction, connection, and try to communicate with that living conscious being. The idea of this is to learn to see the sun as a conscious being. Learn to perceive the sun as a conscious being. Learn to perceive the light as conscious being. The sun in this case, because the card is called sun, so we go with the sun. I want you to learn to perceive the sun as the living being, living conscious being. And if you can start learning, like start trying to establish your interaction with this conscious being, talk to him, ask him for something, and then listen. Talk, ask. But the idea is to learn to perceive the sun as consciousness, conscious being. Oh gosh, there's still so much more to unpack, but I should stop because otherwise this video will be too long. So Anything else should I? Oh gosh, there's still so much more. Just one thing I'll tell. This idea of child riding a horse can be replaced. I like to replace it by the image of a surfer on the board. Maybe you can play with that in your mind to grasp this idea of that precise tuning that you need to do in order to ride this horse without a saddle and reins to interact with this power would be imagining yourself as a surfer on a board being part of you, of your body, and a horse being the wave which you need to ride. And you understand how many different skills you must have in order to be a champion in surfing. And it's not like you have to be strong enough but flexible enough, powerful enough but not too heavy, sensitive enough to feel those tiny differences of the. It's not like how the combination of skills that you need to have in order to perform this program fully is pretty complex. And ability to catch that wave and to stay relaxed. Your upper body of a surfer must be relaxed while he's surfing, and the muscles of the lower part must be strong but also not tense, because all the adjustment that a surfer does while riding a board, a good surfer, is doing all that adjustment with slightest movements. He's controlling the board with feet only, so ankles only. So that idea that the rest of the body has to be relaxed, powerful, strong, sensitive, focused, but relaxed. And the surfer has to keep focus on the spot where he's going and not being distracted by people in the water screaming, look at me, look at me. If you take your glance away from where you're going, the wave throws you off right away. That power is so huge that in order to ride it, you have to know a lot of tricks. That is the idea. Just try to feel a child is riding a horse, a full-scale, like full-size grown horse, and holding a huge flag in one arm and enjoying the ride. Just try to put yourself in that physically. How long would you be able to? Just riding a horse without saddle, like how much concentration do you need to adjust to the impulses so it doesn't throw you off? And a child is doing it here. That's the complexity of this program, but we'll get there if at least you grasp this first spark element. If you can grasp that, we can go deeper into the rest of the symbols. I'm already way beyond my time, so I'm stopping this recording and I say bye to you, and ask me questions. What was clear, what was not? Probably I'll have to explain some stuff, so feel free to ask questions. I'll talk about this program again if it will be needed. Bye bye.